everybody. Welcome to day one of online learning. So, last week we talked about solving a system and the x values canceled out or the y values canceled out. And then what we did is we solved for one of the variables and got a number. And then we plugged that number into the other variable and we were able to solve for a system. So, today we're starting the second half of elimination. The elimination method means that I'm able to cancel out either the x value or I'm able to cancel out either the y value. So in today's examples, we're not going to have a number that can be canceled out easily. So what I've written is I've written steps 1, 2, and 3. And so what I want you to do is in the margin of your paper, under the word examples, I want you to write the following two things. We're first going to look at our equations and we're going to see if the x's are the same number and the opposite signs. Remember, that's what we want. In order for a variable to cancel out, they have to be the exact same number and opposite signs. We're also going to look to see if maybe the y's are the same number but the opposite sign. And today, neither one of these are going to be true. So that means that I need to do my next thing, which is choose either the x's or the y's to make the same number. So on your paper that you have in front of you, you have example number 1. So right now I have two equations. My x's are not the same number, opposite signs. They're 9 and 18. My y's are not the same number, they are opposite signs. So that's good. So my job right now is to then look at, should I make both of my x's the same number or should I make both of my y's the same number? And what number should that be? And that's the big question every time we have a system like this. You want to focus on the x's or do you want to focus on the y's? So right now, I'm going to look at my x's and say, well, they're not opposite signs. 9 and 18, I could make this 9 into an 18. And I'm going to look at my y's. Okay, 8 and 16. Well, I could make 8 into a 16, and they have opposite signs. So I'm going to focus on the y right now. So if I wanted to make both of the numbers the same number, I wouldn't choose to make them both an 8. I can't go smaller. But what I can do is I can make both of these numbers into a 16. So my bottom equation already has a 16. My top equation is 8. So I need to figure out, what do I need to multiply the 8 by? What do I need to multiply the top equation by to get a 16? My rule for multiplying in a system is that I have to multiply the entire top equation. I can't just multiply the number that I want. So right now I have an 8. How do I make it a 16? What number do I multiply? 8 times what is 16? I hope you said 2. So put a parentheses around the entire top equation, and I want you to put a 2 in front. Maybe I'll switch to this side. That would be easier. So just the top equation needs to be changed. This 2 on the outside needs to be multiplied by every term on the top equation. So I can draw my distributive property lines, if that helps me stay organized. So I'm going to do 2 times negative 9x, negative 18x, 2 times 8y, plus 16y, 2 times 9 equals 18. So the top equation looks great. The bottom equation, I don't need to change at all. Remember, I wanted this 16 to cancel out. So I'm going to rewrite the bottom equation as is, negative 18x minus 16y equals negative 18. And I'm going to now focus on the y's because the y's are going to be able to cancel out. So I can add these two equations. And this is now what we did last week. My y values are the same number and they're positive and negative. So I have negative 18 plus negative 18. Negative 36x. My y's are going to cancel, true. Positive 16, negative 16. And then my 18 and negative 18, that also cancels and makes 0. So I'm not going to make this a no solution. It is not going to be infinite solutions. I'm able to solve for x. So negative 36, what are you going to do to get it gone, canceled out? It's multiplied by x, so I hope you're saying it out loud as I'm waiting for you. I want the negative 36 to be canceled. I want to move it to the other side. I want x to be isolated. So I'm going to do, I hope you said divide both sides by negative 36. So divide by negative 36, x equals 0. So I'm halfway done with my ordered pair. All right, 0 comma something. All right, which original equation do you think looks easiest? Which of these two black equations do you like the best? Pick one that maybe has smaller numbers. Pick one that maybe has not very many negative signs. So it's kind of looking like the top one. So I'm going to do the top equation. And instead of x, I'm going to put what I just found my x value to be. So I'm going to have negative 9x plus 8y equals 9. And then now the only variable that I have left to solve for is my y. So I'm going to solve for y. I don't really need to put a 0, do I? What, waste of time, right? Remember that? So 8y equals 9. I want to get y alone. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. I have a fraction answer, and it's totally fine for me to have that. And 9/8 would be the same as 1 1/8 if I had to graph it, but I don't. So one thing that I haven't written yet is my steps. And I know that you have that box on the side of your paper, so I want to make sure that I address that. I've got step 1. I multiplied the top equation, I'll put EQN, by 2. Then I wrote my new equation. That was step 2. The third thing that I did was that I added my equations, right? I was then able to solve for x, right? Then I did what? I knew that x was a value of 0, so I plugged in this 0 into one of my original equations, which basically means I'll put plug 0 into one of the equations. And remember, this is the one where you get to pick. Doesn't matter to me which one. The top equation and the bottom equation, when you plug in 0, you're going to get the same result. And then step 6, I solved for y. Okay, let's go on to the next example. All right, I'd like you to go to example number 3 on your page. So in example number 3, I have to first look and say, do I want to make my x's the same number or do I want to make my y's the same number? So right now, my x's are opposite signs, a 5 and a 15. Well, I know that 5 goes into 15, so I could, maybe this 5 could become a 15. I also have a 1 y, and I also have a 7. So it's really up to you. Your choices are, I could make both of my x's into 15s, and I would have to multiply the top equation by a 3. Or I could make both of my y's a 7, and I would have to multiply my top equation by 7. Since it's a 1 right now, 1 times 7. I'm going to choose to multiply by 3. So that means that I'm going to look at the 5, and I notice that the signs are negative, positive, which is great. It's set up, ready to go. So the top equation is a negative 5. I want it to be a negative 15. So let's multiply the top equation by 3. So that's what I'm going to put for my steps. I'm using the same steps that I did for the last problem because the methods are the same. All right, the whole equation needs to be multiplied by 3. So I can, if this helps for you to draw the lines, I'm going to have my two new equations be 3 times negative 5x, negative 15x, 3 times y, plus 3y, and then 3 times 2, 6. So that looks great. Bottom equation, I don't need to change. It's going to, well, it has a 15x, and so that means that it's going to cancel out. So I'm going to rewrite it. So that looks good. These two equations right here are the two that I'm going to add. Okay, negative 15x plus 15x. Cancels, right? 0. 3 plus negative 7. Negative 4y. Good. 6 plus negative 14. Negative 8, right? Okay. So now I just am ready to solve for y. The negative 4 is there. It's multiplied by y. I do the inverse operation. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. And negative 8 divided by negative 4 is positive 2. So that means that I'm halfway done. My x I do not know, but I know what my y value is. So I'm then going to, and let's change what did I do? I solved for y this time. And now I'm going to plug 2 into one of the equations. So I'm going to look back at my original 2 equations, these that you have typed out on your paper. Well, I think the top one looks easiest, doesn't it? So negative 5x plus y plus 2 equals 2. Well, that's nice. So isolate x. These two are the constants. They're the like terms. They go together first. So I'm going to subtract 2 both sides. And I'll have negative 5x equals 0. Fine. So now I'm actually solving for x. I don't know what my x is. And divide by negative 5. Is that what you thought to do? X equals 0 divided by anything is 0. So my x is 0. So let's change our steps because I had to solve for x this time. My solution. The solution to this system is 0, 2. My x value is 0. My y value is 2. All right, let's move on to example number 4. All right, so now we're on example 4. And let me try to answer some of the biggest questions that students have at this point. The big questions that students have are, how do I know which to focus on? Should I focus on the x's and make the x's the same? Or should I focus on the y's and make the y's the same? So here's the answer. You have to look at your numbers that you're given and say, if I want to make them both the same number, what would I have to multiply by and which number would I have to multiply by? So right now, I have a 16 and an 8, and then I also have a 16 and an 8. So these equations already look similar to me. So you always have to make your numbers be the bigger of the two choices. I cannot make a 16 reduce and go down to an 8. I have to look at the smaller number, and I should make an 8 go into and become a 16. Now, my x's is an 8, and my y is an 8. So it's going to have to be that they both are going to have to become 16s. So what number, 8 times what, makes 16? 2? Okay, so I'm going to have to multiply my whole bottom equation by 2 in order for me to get the bottom equation to have 16s in it. So that means that I'm going to do a big 2 here. And you might notice that my equations are kind of looking exactly the same. We talked about that just a second ago. Nothing happens to my top equation this time. So I'm just going to rewrite it. but I'm deciding to multiply my entire bottom equation by 2. So that means 2 times 8x, positive 16x. 2 times 8y, positive 16y. 2 times 0, 0. All right, so now, what does this mean? When I add these two, my x is going to become 0, my y is going to become 0, and then 0 plus 0 is 0. So I have no x, no y, and no number on the other side. These are literally the exact same equation. What is it called when two lines are exactly the same equation and they're the exact same line? Is it no solution or is it infinite solutions? The exact same line. The lines are touching. They're right on top of each other. They hit here and 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 here. The lines overlap. So the lines have many, many dots where they hit, infinite dots where they hit. The answer is infinite solutions. Okay? Infinite solutions, everything cancels. And in my steps, I can multiply the bottom equation by a 2, but then I actually stop. As soon as I get to step 3 and I add my equations, I got everything canceled out. So I'm good on number 4. All right. So now I'm going to have you work on this on your own and just kind of watch and see what I do. So let's look at example number 5. I want you to tell me and to think about what would I focus on? Because that's the big question. Do I make both of the x's the same number or do I make both of the y's the same number? So my job is to look at the x's, 7 and 3. They don't really have a number in common that's one of those. 3 doesn't go to 7. So maybe I won't pick the x. But let's look at the y's. So the y's, a 6 and a 3. I could make the 3 into a 6, but they're both the same sign. So now I have this negative 3, but remember how I want them to eventually cancel out. So I'm going to have to make this negative 3 into a positive 6. What would I have to multiply this negative 3 by to get a positive 6? I'm hoping you thought a 2, but then a negative 2. So I'm going to do the bottom equation needs to be multiplied by a negative 2. Okay, now I'm going to press pause on the video and I want to have you work it out, and you're going to multiply the bottom equation by negative 2, add the equations together, and your y's are going to cancel out. So press pause on the video now and let's do that. All right, so what I did is I showed my work where I multiplied the bottom equation, added, solved for x, got x to be a positive variable, so I got negative 7, right? So I know that my x value is negative 7. Now, let's pause the video again, and I want you to work ahead because now we know what the x value is. We're going to plug in negative 7 into one of these x values, this top equation or this bottom equation, and we're going to solve for y. Okay, so I just solved for y. I picked the bottom equation because the bottom equation had smaller numbers, and it looked easiest to me. And then negative 3x minus 3y equals 6. Do my work, isolate my variable, get y alone. My y is going to be positive 5. So that means that the solution to this system is negative 7, 5. X value of negative 7, y value of positive 5. The next task I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you work on some of the problems on the homework PDF. So you're going to have to go to the other attachment that I posted in Google Classroom. Yours is white, but There are a couple that I'm going to assign to you, and I'm going to have you do. And then this is due, remember, every homework assignment that I give you is due by 8 p.m. that night, tonight. So since this is Wednesday, today's Wednesday, you're going to have these problems that I assigned to you done by 8 p.m. tonight. All right. If you have a question about something, you can you can post that question in the comment section of the Google Classroom post, because there may be others in the class that also have the same question. And I want to make sure that our questions are transparent and that everyone can maybe benefit from whatever question you may have. All right. Good job today. Thanks very much. And I will see you tomorrow on Thursday for our next lesson. Bye.